Good morning, good morning, good morning. And this is the day the Lord has made, and certainly we're here to rejoice and be glad in it. I want to welcome you to the Hope TV. Certainly it's a joy and a privilege to be able to spend this portion of this Friday morning with you, and you. I'm so glad, so thankful that you've tuned in to the Hope TV today. If you're watching through Apple TV, Roku, Twitch, if you're watching through Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, the edoismith.org website, the House of Hope Atlanta website, the House of Hope Atlanta app. However you're viewing, I'm just honored and thankful and privileged that you allow us to come into your personal space and share this time with you. You know, we're hope dealers here at the Hope TV, and we started this platform back in March. And here we are today, the first Friday in November, and just incredible things have been done from March 9th to November the 6th. I'm thankful and I'm privileged to each of you. If you're watching through a platform that will allow you to subscribe, like, comment, or to share, let me hear from you. You help us with our algorithms, you help us with our engagements, and you help us to explain the platform. So I'm thankful to you, and I appreciate you for thinking enough of us to spend this time with us. So when you subscribe to a platform, you can get notifications as to when new content is uploaded. Your likes and your comments, they help us with our engagements and our algorithms. And when I'm doing things like a deeper dive, those comments are like virtual amens for those of you who understand what I mean by church. And then, of course, when you share it, share the link. That really is beneficial for us because it helps us to expand the platform. So thank you so very much. I appreciate you for tuning in to a deeper dive today. And let me also take this opportunity to thank everybody just for talking to me today and dropping me a line, letting know the city, state. Sophia Rollins from Milford, Virginia. Rosemary Falk Brown. Good morning, Rosemary. Mary Pryor from Mableton, Georgia. Good morning. Esther Morales. God bless you. Millie Hunley. God bless you, Millie. Good to see you. Kimberly Riley. God bless you, Kimberly. Good to see you. Virginia Sheets. Blessings to you. Judith Hampton Thompson. Blessings to you as well. Tina Williams from Fort Valley. God bless you. God bless you. So good to have you here. Sean Addison. God bless you. Thankful for you. Melanie G. Thompson from Indiana. God bless you. CC from New York. God bless you. Veronica Spencer Frank. Blessings to you. Vicky Spriggs from Goldsboro, North Carolina. Blessings to you. Yvonne Juans from DC. God bless you. God bless you. So good to see you. Grateful to all of you. Thanks for coming this morning. Glad to have you a part. James Kinchin. God bless you. God bless you. That Jimmy, God bless you. God bless you, nephew. Jack Christina Jackson, God bless you. Joseph Hogan from Macon, Georgia, from the 478. God bless you, Joseph. Good to have you here with us. Greta Samuels, God bless you. Good morning. Good morning, inspiration. All right, that's what we want to hear. Certainly be an inspiration to all of you for tuning in today. Lillian McIntosh Roberson, good morning to you as well. God bless you. Glad to have you here with us today. Honored that you'll be a part. It certainly means the world to us. Linda Baker from New Jersey. Blessings to you. Sandra Brown from Jacksonville, Florida. God bless you. Good to have you here with us today. Tax Express Refunds from Miami, Florida. God bless you. Tax Express Refunds. God bless you. Glad to have you with us on Facebook today. Tommy Gregory from San Antonio, Texas. Blessings to you, Tommy. God bless. God bless you. Thanks for being a part. Those people who tuned in from Facebook and YouTube and Periscope. Let me also thank everybody who's been watching through our latest distribution portal. We wanted to have one centralized place for all things Hope TV. And so back in the about a month ago, we finally were able to get our website launched, and I'm excited about that. And so we now have the HopeTV.com, the HopeTV.com. Well, all things Hope TV are found on the Hope TV website. You can go there and get a list of the programs. I mean, you can see the daily schedule. You can subscribe to our newsletter there. You can become a participant. We had some great program this week, some election coverage all week long. It was powerful, man. It was just a great week for Hope TV, and I'm thankful. I'm grateful to God for it. And all our shows are there for women, for men, for youth, for senior adults, for singles, married, finances, mental health, coronavirus conversations, comedy, financial freedom. We have a show for business owners. Just a variety of you can watch everything live. Facebook was acting up this week, so if you ever have issues with like a platform, you can go to Hope TV and watch us live. Everything is streamed right there. Sometimes in social media outlets they have channels, but we go straight to our own page, and like we can say we can say whatever we want to say on our own channel. Where sometimes it's difficult. So listen, man, it's just a blessing, and you can watch us. You can watch us, and so we're excited. We're excited that you're here with us, and some great things are happening in Hope TV. So go there, help us get the word out to help other people know about the Hope TV. So thank you very much. Let me just say a word about this right quick while I'm on it. I want to give a shout out to everybody who exercised their right to vote. Those of you who are all civically responsible past couple of weeks, and whether your state allowed you to vote by absentee voting, by early voting, or you stood in line on Tuesday, however you voted, whatever method you use, let me just commend you for being civically engaged. I think it's so important. Sometimes Christians, people of faith, think we just take our hands off of it and let God determine the outcome, and we don't get engaged. People say, "I don't vote. I'm not political." You're not being political. You're being civically responsible and socially responsible. And Jesus was responsible and conscious and sensitive and interested in social issues. And so I just want to thank you. The gospel has social implications. So for those of you who went out to exercise your right to vote, however you voted, I'm not getting into that today. We just want to thank you for being wise and being responsible, for being engaged in a historic election. And we'll talk more about that at a later date. But just want to put that out there because I think it's important that people of faith are involved politically and socially. We've been talking about knowing God on Fridays for the past 3-4 months, and it's been an exciting conversation. We've been talking about knowing God and the attributes of God and the two types of attributes. We've been talking about the communicable attributes of God and the incommunicable attributes of God. Communicable attributes of God and incommunicable. The incommunicable ones are those that are not shared. Communicable just means to have in common, to to be shared, to be in communion with, to be communicated with. And so when it's incommunicable, that means it's not shared with us. When it's incommunicable, that means we don't have it in common. And so there are some attributes that belong to God that are only God's. We don't hold those things in common. For instance, and there were a couple examples. God's eternity. God is eternal. We're temporal. That is an incommunicable attribute that belongs only to God. There's another one, God's unchangeableness. Malachi 3:6, even God says, "For I am the Lord, and I change not. Therefore, you sons of Jacob, you're not consumed." So God is unchanging, we are. So God is eternal, God is unchanging, right? God is omnipresent. That means it's incommunicable. That means all present, all right? God is everywhere at the same time. We are bound by space and time. So God is everywhere at the same time. We're not. So they're incommunicable, right? And so we dealt with these incommunicable attributes of God, the incommunicable. And we've been talking about the communicable attributes of God. Those are the ones that are shared, the ones that we do hold in common. There are some attributes that we don't have in common with God. There are some that we do. We have in communion with God. They're communicating with us. For instance, love. That's a communicable attribute. God is love. First John tells us we're commanded to love each other. So we have the ability or the capacity to love. God is a God of knowledge. We can learn and know. That's a communicable attribute. God is merciful. Met us this morning with a brand new set of mercy. Jesus says in the Beatitudes, blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. God is merciful. We can have the capacity to be merciful. God is a just God, reigns on the just as well as the unjust. The prophet Micah in Micah 6 and 8 tells us that we ought to love mercy and do justice and walk humbly before our God. So even from a political perspective, we want justice. We want equality for all people. We don't want brutality or oppression. So even when we vote our political perspectives, justice should be the end goal or something that is included in our approach toward politics. God is just, and we're told to love mercy, do justice, and then walk humbly before our God. Now, today we're going to talk about. I want to talk about some incommunicable. We've been talking about the communicable attributes probably for the last 3 months, but I want to shift today. We're going to talk about some. I want to talk about the incommunicable attributes. And God's timing is so awesome because I think with everything that's happening politically in our nation, it's important that we focus on God. And and the timing of this is just really impeccable. I didn't see it before, and this wasn't intentional, but I think it's very necessary. And today we're going to talk about the incommunicable attribute of God's eternity. God is God's eternity. Very important, I think, relative to where we are right now as a nation, that we talk about something that is eternal. Something that is eternal. Please know that God is eternal. God is eternal. I want to give you a definition right quickly for that, and I'm going to press. I'm not going to hold you long, but I want to press into this a little bit because I think it's very liberating and it's very purifying. I think it's sanctifying. God's eternity. God's eternity. God's eternity. God's eternity. God's eternity. Listen to what it says about God's eternity. God has no beginning, end, or succession of moments in his own being. Read that again. God has no beginning, no end, or succession of moments in his own being. You know, and he sees all time equally, vividly. My goodness. Yet he sees events in time and acts in time. That's a very loaded sentence. God has no beginning, no end, or no succession of moments. This happened, this happened, this happened. You know, who's gonna, Joe Biden is getting ready to succeed. He's gonna be the successor. He's to the presidency. You had Obama, you had Trump, now Joe Biden is getting ready to be, he's going to be the next president, Joe Biden, right? That's a succession of moments. God doesn't have a succession of moments in his own being. When God sees time, God sees all times equally and vividly. Yet he acts in time and sees in time, okay? Now, I'm going to come at that in a moment. So there's no beginning. There's no end. There will never be a time when you're going to go to the polls and God's going to be on the ballot in terms of the ending of divinity. Humanity can't end divinity. I saw something a couple weeks ago where candidate said Trump was going, Biden won, he was going to end God. He was going to hurt God. Well, Biden, no leader can end God. I don't care who it is. No leader is that powerful where they can end God. And the reason why a leader can't end God because no leader started God. So you can't conclude what you didn't commence. Got to preach by itself. So God has no beginning, right? You can't trace. You can trace Trump's ascendancy to the president. You can go back and find out what got Biden into politics. You can go back and look at Kamala Harris's family or Mike Pence's family. You can find out about them and how what gave them a desire for politics or law or business. You can kind of trace their ascendancy. You know, Trump's ascendancy to the White House started with his railing against President Obama and birtherism. You can trace his ascendancy, his accent to the White House. You can trace that. When did it begin? After the Tea Party movement, you can trace it. Joe Biden being in Delaware and Pennsylvania, and his first wife dying. You can trace all that, right? But when it comes to God, who can trace his beginning? You can't go back far enough. There's no book old enough. There's no sage ancient enough that can tell you when God got started. When did God get started? Whenever things got started, God preceded the start date. So God didn't start in Genesis. He was in being before the beginning began. Has no ending, has no beginning. And there's never been a time when nobody gonna vote him out of office. All right. I think it's so important, all right? Now sometimes this doctrine is called the doctrine of God's infinity with respect to time. To be infinite is to be unlimited. And so the doctrine teaches God that time does not limit God. So God is not, it's the doctrine of infinity, okay? Which means that God is not limited by time. There is no time limit on God. God doesn't have a term limit. Says Franklin Delano Roosevelt, American presidents can only serve 2 terms. Franklin Delano Roosevelt served 3, right? But there's an amendment in the Constitution after FDR that now you can only serve 2 terms. Trump talked about trying to expand and serving for life. We don't do that. That's aristocratic. That's autocratic. Dictators do that. Kings can do that. But in America we have a constitutional amendment and stipulations that no president can serve more than 8 years. Each term is 4 years, right? And so they're limited by time. That's a term limit. Once you serve those 2 terms, you're limited by time. Not with God, right? God stepped before time to create it. Then God stepped into time to redeem it, and now stepped back outside of time to watch over it. So it can't be limited by time because He created it, and the Creator will never be constrained by a creature that came from His own creativity. I said the Creator won't be constrained here by a creature that came from His own creativity. All right, I want to just put that out there because I think it's very, very important. All right. So, so time can't affect God's being. All right, time can't change His knowledge. Uh, God never learns new things, nor forgets. All right, because that would take away His ability to be eternal. So God is eternal. I want to also say God is not. Sometimes people have called God everlasting. I'll talk about that in a moment because I get that, and we'll get that in a moment. I want to talk about number one. I'm going to give you 2 quick points on this because I don't want to get too heavy. A, God is timeless in His own being. My goodness, God is timeless in His own being. Timeless. You know, it's funny that Joe Biden is going to be the oldest president in American history. This is the first time we had 2 presidential candidates who were both over 70. You know, Joe Biden will be 80 something when this term limit ends. They already talking about Trump will possibly run again in 2024. He'd be nearly 80 years old, and that's considered old. You know, 2 times, the first time we ever had 2 70-year-old candidates. They're dated by time. They have a start date and an ending date. But what we understand, God is not, it's timeless. Now, I want to say this right quick. I think it's blessed me. The fact that God has no beginning or end is seen in Psalm 90 and 2. I like this scripture. I'm going to give you a few scriptures on this. Look at Psalm 90 and 2. And I'm going to give you about 4 or 5 scriptures. I'm going to let you go. But let's deal with the timelessness of God. Because this is very, very helpful. Look what it says. Before the mountains were brought forth, or ever thou hast formed the earth and the world, even from everlasting to everlasting. Lord have mercy. Thou art God. Ooh, you talk about having a high view of God. Listen to the imagery there. Before the mountains were brought forth, or ever thou hast formed the earth and the world, even from everlasting to everlasting, thou art God. Now I like that. I like that, just the imagery to give you from everlasting to everlasting. Now, when I talk about God, I get what it says from everlasting to everlasting, but I like the word eternal. I like the word eternal. I like the fact that they didn't say that we're not at this point today is not God's everlastingness. I like that philosophically, and I like it theologically. I get what he says about everlasting. Everlasting is just beautiful. It's language and it's linguistic and it's poetry. But I like eternal. I like to see God more from the perspective of eternal than everlasting. Here's why. If those of you like know boxing, but when you watch boxing, sometimes boxing gloves are made by a company called Everlasting. But if a boxing glove is made by a company or boxing trunks, right? Made by a company called Everlasting. The thing about that boxing glove had a manufacturing date. Now it's named Everlasting, but there was a date when that glove was created. Second thing about that boxing glove, even though it's named Everlasting, it's not really gonna last forever. At some point, that glove gonna get old. It's gonna get dated. New technology, right? That you can't make a car in 2020 and say it's gonna be everlasting. At some point, that car not gonna run like it used to. At some point in the future, people not gonna want to drive it no more. You rather see people driving cars now without power steering. I learned how to drive a car without no power steering. You rather people technology comes and the motor gears out. At some point that you may not want to drive that car. If the Lord come back 200 years, nobody's gonna be driving that car, right? Now, here's what I want to say about this thing with everlasting. When something is everlasting, even if it lasts forever, okay, let's just assume it did. I don't think it does, but even if we say something lasts forever. The problem with that is it had a beginning date. So you say, God, you're everlasting. Yeah, that is true that God is everlasting, but the problem with that philosophically is that God had a beginning date. You can be everlasting after you were created. Something can be created and last forever. The problem with using that term for God is God has no creation date. That's why I like eternal. So you can build something so it's gonna last forever. That's wonderful. But it only existed once you built it. There's nobody who built God. So God may last forever, but God has no beginning date. My Lord, did you hear me? Oh, no beginning date. He was there before. He was there before. God has no beginning, so he has no end, okay? Look at Job 36:26. Job 36:26. I like this one. Job 36:26. Look at this scripture in Job 36:26. Behold, God is great, and we know him not. Neither can the number of his years be searched out. You can't figure out how long God has existed. Nobody can count it. Nobody can date him, right? Because of the eternal nature of God. Look at Revelation 1 and 8. I got two more scriptures on this. Three more scriptures on this. Revelation 1 and 8. Look at Revelation 1 and 8. Revelation 1 and 8. Look what it says. I am Alpha. This is Jesus. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, said the Lord, which is and was, which is to come, the Almighty. So I am the Alpha and the Omega, right? And I'm all that's in between. I'm going to last forever. That's everlasting, but I'm eternal because you can't trace my end. If you tried to put my beginning and my end together, they bump together as a continuous circle. It's perpetuity. It's infinite. You can't separate my beginning from my end. I'm already at the end of my existence from the time I've started my existence. There's no separation because I'm not bound by time. Look at John 5:8, John 8:58. I like this one. I'm going somewhere. I'm gonna put it together. John 8:58. Jesus said unto them, Verily, verily, I say unto you, before Abraham was, I am. This is Jesus. Just in case you get twisted, I'm God the Son. And y'all love Abraham. That's good. He's Father Abraham. I want you to respect him. He's the progenitor of Hebrew faith. But understand this, y'all seeing me now in time. But in eternity, I existed before Abraham. I'm really a descendant of Abraham and a progenitor of Abraham at the same time. Jesus, he said, you see me, y'all see me, Jesus says, you see me as Mary's son. Because you see me in time. But in eternity, I was here before my mama was. So Jesus is really the only man who's older than his mama. You can't. We get ready to enter into the Advent season in a few weeks and celebrate the birth of Jesus. Think about it. Next month is Christmas. Fifth Sunday is Advent. The Advent season, the Christmas season. We're going to celebrate Jesus' interest into the world. But don't think that his interest into the world meant his existence in essence and being. Jesus existed before Christmas. He stood before time. All right? I'm going to help myself. Now, let's go to John 1:1. This thing is getting good to me here. I'm about to run. Think about how it makes me understand how awesome God is. Look at John 1:1. Genesis 1:1. Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created heaven and earth. When? In the beginning. When was the beginning? Whenever God said the beginning was. Which one came first, God or the beginning? God. Why is that? Because the beginning is a reference to time. So you can't put the beginning. I wish it would say, because I wish it really reads, in the beginning, God. Theologically, that verse is really inaccurate because it starts with time. In the beginning, God. The scripture really reads like this: God in the beginning. Because when you start with in the beginning, that's talking about time. You don't start the scripture off with time, you start off with God. The beginning didn't produce God. God produced the beginning. Yeah, that's how it really reads, really in Hebrew. Not in the beginning, God. It's really God in the beginning. The beginning doesn't produce God. God produces the beginning. So the starting point shouldn't be time. The starting point should be the one who introduced and produced time. So the beginning doesn't produce God. We don't find God because of the beginning. We find the beginning because of God. I hope y'all hear. I hope y'all. I know y'all hear me. So the beginning is not where God came from. Okay, right? The beginning is not where God came from. God is where the beginning emanates from. God doesn't emanate from the beginning. The beginning emanates from God. So really when you look at it Hebrew perspective, you start everything with God. God got to be the beginning. Whew. That's the problem with us in our lives. We start with time. See, and when you start with time and you put God after time, you get nervous. Oh, when my bill's gonna get paid. Oh, the bills. Oh, what am I gonna pay about the bill? Oh, I got a bill due in December. You know what that means? You put time, December, before the divine. Oh, I'm depressed. When my loved one come? Well, that's because you started with time. You started with time. Oh, what am I going to do? What am I going to do about tomorrow? Tomorrow is a reference to time. That means if I'm worried about tomorrow, that means you put time over God. Hope that. Oh, am I going to have money to pay for Christmas? Christmas is a reference to time. And so you start thinking about time, you get depressed. Whenever you put time, whenever you start with time and put God after time, depression comes in. But when you put God first, God is provided for me, and Christmas is next month. So it shifts my whole perspective when I start off not with Christmas, but with God. Because if I'm focused on Christmas, that means the cosmos is more important than the creator. But if I start, God, you're with me, and Christmas is coming, the acknowledgement that God is with me first helps me to realize that I can handle Christmas. Because Christmas ain't more important than God. Christmas doesn't come before God. God becomes before Christmas. Are y'all listening to me here? Are you listening to me here? So God comes first, not time. God first. Seek ye first the kingdom of God. So in your life, in my life, let's not fragment the verse by putting time before God. Start with God and then move to time. So not in the beginning, God. It's really God in the beginning. And I'm telling you, it'll shift your whole perspective because now I'm starting with God. And if I start with God before Christmas, then it makes me realize, you know what? No matter what happens with Christmas, this ain't my first Christmas. Ain't my first radio. And the same way God has got me through, I get all nostalgic and I don't do holidays very well when I had all these, I feel funny when Thanksgiving comes up, I feel funny because, my mother's not here, my sister's not here, my brother's not here. I lost my mother, my sister, and my brother. All of them died in January. And so the holidays have a new meaning for me since I had all these deaths in my family, right? But what I realize is if I think about the holidays before him, I got to put heaven before the holidays. So if I start with God, then I'm noticing my fourth Christmas, my fourth holiday with my mom. Well, okay. Well, God, holidays, not holidays, God. Focus on God lets me know, boy, you made it through all these other, you made it through these holidays. You made it through these holidays because you put God first. You didn't say in the holidays, then you put God as an afterthought. Let me start with God, not my bills. Got to be paid tomorrow, then God. Are you kidding me? No wonder we stay depressed. Because you start thinking about how many bills, you start counting everything you owe. It's depress you. But if I start with God, then pick up this stuff that's relative to time, I can handle all this stuff because I started with God. And my focus on God and my history with God and your history with God lets you know. Tuesday night I went to bed not feeling good because everybody who knows me knows I didn't want Donald Trump to win nothing. And I know some of you vote differently. I'm not gonna say too whole lot political, but I didn't want Trump to win. That's my personal thing. That's my own personal ideology, political. You don't have to agree with me, but I didn't want him to win. I didn't like him. I ain't never been this distasteful. I don't like him. I didn't want him to win, right? And I went to bed that Tuesday night, saw them election results. I did not feel good because I didn't want. I'm like, oh Lord. Then I thought about it. I didn't feel good 4 years ago. Then I thought about it 20 years ago. Some of y'all, I'm telling my age somewhat. 20 years ago, I remember when the same thing happened with Al Gore and George Bush. I wanted Al Gore to win. I liked Tipper Gore. And I remember, and it all came down to one state, South Florida. Come on, y'all know, Dade County. I done had problems with a lot of people from Miami ever since then. And I remember feeling so bad 20 years ago. And they went to court, took all that long time. And it hit me. You felt bad then. This ain't the first time on the election, you had to go and wait on results to come in. This ain't the first time, you had to go to court to figure out who gonna win. The Supreme Court got involved way back 20 years ago. And think about it. You all upset as if who is in the White House in time has the power to disrupt your life. And it made me realize something. Man, God was there 20 years ago. And ain't nobody talking about Bush Anybody talking about Al Gore right now. I ain't thought about Al or Tipper, right? Because you know why? Because if I start with the election in mind and not God in mind, when I thought about it, God got us through that. God got us through Nixon. When I was born, Richard Nixon was the president. God got us through Gerald Ford. God got us through Jimmy Carter. God got us through Ronald Wilson Reagan. God got us through George Bush. God got us through William Jefferson Clinton. God got us through George Bush Jr. God got us through Obama. And God just brought us through Trump. So am I going to allow what is happening in time every 4 years to affect God? So it ain't the election, then God. It's God and then the election. When I focus on God as the source is eternal, transcends time, then while political leaders do matter, while policies do matter, if I focus on God first, no matter what happens in time, whew, I'm gonna be all right. Because guess what? Let me tell you something. I didn't like George Bush Jr. Huh? I didn't want him to win. I wanted Al Gore to win. I think they stole the election from Bush then, from Gore then. Remember his brother was no, I want to get up. His brother was the governor down there in Florida. I believe he helped him get it. I was so upset. I was so mad. 20 years ago. And I thought about it. You were mad. I was upset. I was mad. But y'all know what? I was so mad. But I ate as soon as the election was over with. Bush was president, but I still ate. Bush was president, but I still had a roof over my head. Bush was president, I still had some gas in my car. Bush was president, I still had some clothes in my closet. Bush was president, I still had an assignment and a purpose and a mission. I still had to go preach on Sunday. I still had revival meetings and conferences. Because my life didn't start with November. My life starts with God. And if my life and my center is God, when November every 4 years comes up, I can handle it. Because it's not in the beginning God, it's God in the beginning. Let me keep going. All right, so God has no beginning, no end, no succession moments. Listen, B. And this is the last thing I'm gonna let you go. God sees events in time and acts in time. Last point, just 2 points. So God sees events in time and God acts in time. Now, God is not limited by events. God is not limited by time. God sees all these things and God sees time equally. See, here's the thing about God. While we are trying to figure out the 2020 election, while we're trying to figure it out, God sees the 2020 election and the 2060 election at the same time. While we're counting ballots in Pennsylvania and Georgia and Nevada and Arizona, while we're counting ballots in 2020, God sees them counting ballots in 2060. And he sees them equally at the same time. See, we're bound by, we can only see it as it's in front of us because we're limited by time. But God already sees who's going to be elected in 2060. While we don't know who's going to run in 2024, God already sees 2060 equally. God's looking at 2020 and 2060 at the same time. And is not shocked by either one of them. Are you hearing me? Are you hearing me? That's because he's eternal. He sees events in time. God acts in time. But while he sees events in time, he also sees things equally. Are you listening to me? So he sees all time equally, vividly. At the same time, God's looking at this time and that time vividly and equally. Yet he, while he's looking at all time equally and vividly, he can act in our time according to his plan and his purpose. Are you hearing me? Are you hearing what I'm saying? So while we ought to do our job and go and vote, which is what we're supposed to do, that's responsibility. But don't think, but don't think that God is oblivious to time, because God sees it equally. God is not waiting for 2024 to see what's going to happen. God already sees and knows who the next president is going to be. While we're trying to figure out and validate who this one is going to be, God already knows who the next one is going to be. He's looking at the same time. And when we get to 24, he'd have been moved to 2100 at the same time. So he sees events in time and acts in time. Look at Galatians 4. Ooh, I'm getting happy here. Genesis 4. Galatians 4 and 4. Let y'all go. Galatians 4 and 4. Galatians 4 and 4. Look at this in Galatians 4 and 4. Galatians 4 and 4. I love put it on the screen for me. Galatians 4 and 4. Look what it says here about that. It says, but when the fullness of time was come, when the fullness of time was come, God sent forth his son, made of a woman. Now, wait just a second. When the fullness of time was come. Now, when the fullness of time, God sent forth his son. So God sent Jesus in the fullness of time. That's when Jesus came to the earth. That's what Christmas is all about. Him coming to earth, Christ masked in flesh. God sent forth Jesus in the fullness of time, made of a woman, made under the law, to redeem those who are under the law, that we might receive the adoption of sons. God sent him in the fullness of time. But God didn't make the decision to send him in the fullness of time. God had that planned before the beginning began. See, he sends him in time. But the Lamb of God was slain before the foundation of the world. So God makes sure he's slain first, and then he sends him. Jesus doesn't get slain after he comes. Jesus was slain before he came. Jesus doesn't come into the world to die. In the plan of God, when he came here, he was dead already. In time, he had to die. But in God's plan, he was already dead. I think I saw a movie when that death row that said dead man walking. When Jesus came, he was dead spiritually. He was dead in the plan of God before he came. That's why Isaiah put it this way in Isaiah 53. All we like sheep have gone astray. We've turned everyone to his own way, and the Lord had laid upon him the iniquity of us all. Listen to this now. He was wounded for our transgressions. Wait a minute, Isaiah. He's prophesying now. He's prophesying 700 years before Jesus was ever born. Prophecy is supposed to say he will be coming. Prophecy is supposed to say he shall come. He also says, behold, a virgin shall conceive and shall bring forth his name. That's prophecy. To speak now about something that's going to happen in the future. That's what it's supposed to be. But Isaiah is deep because he's speaking prophetically about something that's supposed to happen 700 years later, but he speaks in the past tense. How are you prophesying about something in the past tense? Because Isaiah says, theologically speaking, Jesus didn't come to earth to die. He was already dead. 700 years before he was born, he says he was wounded for our transgressions. He was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement of our peace was upon him, and with his stripes we're healed. He was bruised for our iniquities. He was wounded for our iniquities. Was, past tense. Wounded, past tense. Bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement of our peace was upon him, past tense. With his stripes we are healed. He's prophesying using past tense nomenclature about a 700-year event that was coming in the future. Because Isaiah knew when he came, he was already dead. When he came in Bethlehem, he was already dead. Jesus didn't have to wait to get to Jesus. Let me tell you something. That was a Garden of Gethsemane before there was a Garden of Eden. In the plan of God, Jesus committed to die before there was ever creation. Whew, that's heavy. He was already. That's why when the wise men came to him and brought him gifts, they brought gold. Matthew chapter 2, they brought gold, frankincense, and myrrh. That last gift, myrrh, was embalming fluid. Gold represented his kingdom. Frankincense represented sacrifice. Myrrh was embalming fluid. Why would y'all bring embalming fluid to a baby? Why would the wise men bring embalming fluid to a 2-year-old baby when by the time they found him? You know why? Because it was prophetic to his ministry. They said that as soon as he was born, he was already dead. God just sent him in time to fulfill what had already been done in eternity. So it was done in eternity. It was fulfilled in time. Woo! God ordained it in eternity. God manifested in time. Let me tell you something. That's some blessings in your life that you're waiting to manifest. You're waiting on manifestation, not creation. You're waiting on, let me tell you something. God has done the initiation of blessings in your life. It's just you need time to catch up for God to ordain the time for manifestation. So you can start praising God for every blessing that has already taken place in initiation. And because you understand it has taken place in initiation, you can shout before you get the manifestation. That's why you don't have to wait till the battle is over. You can shout now. The battle, the battle being won is just manifestation. Huh? But you already got it, initiation. So you won before you ever saw the victory. My God. I gotta close here. I got to close. You know what was interesting to me? You know what was interesting to me? You know what was interesting to me? I'm gonna close with this because I'm getting happy and I don't need to be acting this on. I don't need to be doing this on deeper dive. Let me tell you what got me the other day. What got me the other day was I wondered. I started feeling better because of the pundits, all the political pundits, and I know those some of y'all who didn't vote the way I voted. You might not like this analogy, but I got to give it to you. I love you now. We can differ politically, but it's a good analogy. Here is when I knew that this election was over. This is when I knew and felt comfortable that my candidate was going to be the next president. Here's when I knew it. Now, all the data said that 45 was leading in Pennsylvania. All the data said that 45 was leading in Georgia. All the data said that 45 was leading in Michigan and Wisconsin. What you saw, the number said, who was in the lead said he was going to win. But people in Biden's camp was celebrating. In my mind, I said, how are y'all celebrating and you're behind? How are y'all celebrating and he still got a 400,000 lead in Georgia? How y'all celebrated? And here's how they was able to celebrate. And then even the Trump filed suit against the states while he was in the lead. Stop the counts. Stop the counts. Stop the count. File suit. And here's what it told me. Biden could celebrate when he was behind because they knew some other information was out there that hadn't yet been fulfilled. Some other ballots had been cast. Some other stuff was out there that hadn't yet manifested. The votes had been given. The ballots had been filled out. It had been, some votes had their initiation, but hadn't had that manifestation. So because some stuff had been initiated, it just needed time for the manifestation. And they could look at the trends in the area to determine that we know the track record and our trends are good enough. And because we know what has been filed, we know the numbers that are still out there. We know the stuff that's already been written but ain't manifested yet. And no matter what the tea leaves say or what it looks like right now, we know some word is still out there. There's some things that have already been initiated out there. And all we got to do is be patient and be faithful and wait on the manifestation of what's already happened in its own initiation. Let me tell you something. Can I tell you something? I don't care what the tea leaves say. I don't care what the devil throws in front of you. I don't care how bad it looks like you're down. May I tell you something? There's some stuff that's already been determined in heaven. There's some stuff that's already had its initiation. All you need is to wait for time to bring about manifestation. I'm telling you, the battle has already been fought and the victory has already been won. Woo, because we serve an eternal God. Just because you can't see it, you're not supposed to see it because you're in time. But God sees the beginning from the end. That's some stuff that's already been written. And it's just waiting on time for manifestation. And because there's some more word out there over your life, it ain't over until the word is fulfilled in your life. And whatever God has spoken over your life, it has to come to pass. So because of what God has done in initiation, I just need time to bring about the manifestation. Child of God, you're going to win because you're a child of God. And God is not worried about manifestation. God, that's why God is not, well, God is like people in Biden camp. They back chilling. God ain't worried because God already knows what happened in initiation. The moment Trump filed suit was the moment I know he had lost, because he knew what would take place in initiation. He knew what was coming, and while it looked like he had the lead, he lost his mind. He filed suit while he was in the lead. Stop the count because he knew some more. Let me tell you something. That's why the devil mad at you, because the devil knows what's out there. The devil in hell knows what's coming your way. So he wants to stop the count, stop you by anxiety, stop you with anxiety, stop you with stress, stop you with depression, because the devil knows what's coming. He's trying to file suit because he's the accuser of the brother. That's what he's trying to file suit on you, file suit on your blessings to make you think you ain't gonna win, to get in your head. But the devil knows everything that's out there that God has already ordained in your favor. Let him file suit. Let him file suit. That's why he's called the accuser of the brother. That means he's the prosecuting attorney. But the blessing is that even though he is the prosecuting attorney that wants to file suit against our blessing and our future, thank God we have an advocate. We have an advocate. Yeah, he tried to file charges. You got the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you in the court of law if you can't afford one won't be appointed to you. I'm so glad that I got a court-appointed lawyer. He was appointed by the government because the government is going to be upon his shoulders. And when I had to go to trial, when you had to go trial in the spirit, and the devil stood before God and tried to bring up charges against us, Jesus looked at you and said, don't you say a word. What you mean? Ain't got to fight? You got to fight. Why I ain't got to fight? Because I'm related to the judge. I'm on the same level as the judge. And because I'm on the same level as the judge, I can't be overruled. I got to go. I'm gonna mess around with y'all on this Friday. I just came to tell y'all, I don't care what it looks like. Go ahead and start planning your victory party. Because you have a God who's birthed in initiation and is waiting on time to bring manifestation. Because God is eternal. My friend, you've been watching A Deeper Dive. I hope y'all got it. Always remember this. If you be good to God, God will be good to you. I'll see y'all tonight at 11 p.m. for Friday Night Live. I got some more to say about this tonight. I'll see y'all tonight. But don't you lose your head. Don't you lose your head. Because you got a lawyer who's on the same level as a judge, and he can't be overruled. And when the devil says when God says to the attorney, they got a fee. They got a fine. Your lawyer's gonna take to the judge, they ain't got no fine. God gonna say to Jesus, what do you mean they don't have no fine? They ain't got no fee. The wage of sin is death. Some of the stuff the devil is saying is true. He said, yeah, you're right. The wage of sin is death. But you can't charge them. Because I've already paid for my client's sin. Till next time. Peace.
Well,